Hello, welcome to Assured In-Home Care, and we are discussing today how important communication with older adults is, especially those with memory loss or cognitive impairment, and how special training and sensitivity training especially need to be done prior to hiring our caregivers. So we really encourage our caregivers to abide by these principles, and we hope that everyone would, because we don't want any ageism. We don't ever want older adults feeling demeaned in any way, like someone speaking over them or in front of them, or, they're really not giving them the dignified care that they deserve. So here's some tips for communicating. I would say number one is structure and consistency is important. When you are hiring an agency or a caregiver, it's so important that they're fingerprinted. And that's why we go through an agency. But it's even so important that it's consistent. And consistency is keeping the same schedule every week. We realize life happens with caregivers and with clients, and that's okay. But consistency is important. Making sure even the typical day schedule is consistent. Like watching The Price is Right at 10 a.m. every morning, and getting the caregiver to make sure they know how to turn on the TV, Channel 7, Price is Right. For example, that kind of consistency. Mealtime. There are many studies that have been done on how on earth in assisted livings do older adults memorize the meal times. They do. They may have the worst memory loss in a memory care, yet they're always lined up at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. because it's consistent. And the brain can relearn and keep up with structure. Number two, and it's really one of my biggest pet peeves, is caregivers or even family members. I know I even do it. I try not to. Do not argue with an older adult. I love my mom so much. And I've learned that it's compassionate redirection and no debating. They're always right and we are always wrong. Compassionate redirection is so critical, and they are always right and we are always wrong, and it's okay. It's okay to make them feel that good about themselves. And I think another point to bring up is therapeutic fibbing. And it's really not to go to the extreme as to lie about their checking account or anything that's important or legal. It's really such as Mrs. Smith saying to her caregiver, well, I want to check on my husband. I love my husband. I really want to check on him. And we know the husband is passed on. The caregiver knows. So the caregiver could say, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Smith died. Well, how would that make her feel? Very sad and probably depressed. So instead she says, tell me about your relationship with your husband. What was it like? When did you get married? Let's go. I'd love to see some pictures. That kind of redirection is therapeutically fibbing, but it's very dignified. Do not remind them that they are forgetting. For example, hi, Mrs. Smith. It's Jackie. Do you remember my last name? Do you remember where I'm from? Do you know that I work for Assured In-Home Care? Do you remember what city we're in? Asking them to remember short-term memory things is really not appropriate. It reminds them that they can't remember. So then you get a very frustrated, sad client. We don't want that. Talking about them in front of them is a no. It's not only ageism and not dignified, it's mean. And it's almost treating them like they don't exist or they're dead. And they're not. They're in the room. So here's Mr. Smith and the daughter and the doctor. The doctor needs to talk right to Mr. Smith. How are you, Mr. Smith? How are you doing? And sometimes they're really busy, but they can say, Mr. Smith, is it okay if I talk to your daughter, Rachel, and ask her some things? And if he says, yes, that's okay, then he can talk to her. But there's a nice, proper way to do this to make them feel good. Prompting and filling in is appropriate. If your mom is frustrated and she just can't remember that it's Thursday, she's like, now what date is it? Just pop it right in there. It'll make her feel better. Reminding them of your name is critical. This goes back to structure and consistency. So when you show up to the house, I hope the caregiver, when I say you, I mean the caregiver, says, hi, Mr. Bandor. I just want to let you know I'm Jackie. I'm here. Of course, I know you're Jackie. Well, you just say, that's okay. I was just reminding you because I know how busy you get. Or, gosh, I always forget my own name. Or you can make a funny joke, but try your best to just say your name over and over again, your first name, and then wear a name tag with just your first name. Hopefully just your first name, just because if you have a long last name or they have to read something long, it's tough on them. So big, bold, and your first name. Reminding them of the date is fine, but if they get insistent that that's not the date, that's okay too. Other issues to really talk about are when you're having a difficult time communicating with your client. So this is a caregiver and they're having a very difficult time. Try some things outside the box. Maybe try calm music in the background, relaxation music, sometimes massage, whatever will redirect them to something calm. And making sure there's not loud noise in the background, that you have good eye contact when you're having trouble communicating or they're having trouble understanding. Sometimes writing it down is even great. Like, we are going to the doctor's at 10 a.m. So you're writing that down and you show it to your client. That really helps. Different people learn in different ways. And with an aging brain, especially with disease such as dementia, it's very difficult. Knowing your loved one, just knowing them and who they are is so critical to a caregiver. That's why consistency, again, is critical, not changing caregivers every week, because you want them to know what is their favorite football team they love to watch. Could be the Dallas Cowboys, could be the Raiders, whoever it is. If they know that, they're going to immediately be able to redirect to that. Knowing their favorite TV shows, knowing that they love to walk. Well, it could be some older adults don't love to walk. They'd rather do chair exercises. Knowing your client. I know it sounds so basic, but it's important. And good caregivers get to know the client. And bad caregivers just are there to do the job and don't really get to know them. They don't ask those questions. Where they went to school, what their favorite foods are. That's sad, but it happens. So I hope those are some great tips on how to communicate with older adult clients. Thank you for tuning in.